vessels. There's also injured to the spine. So these injuries were severe enough to cause death.
Right now, President William Ruto met with political leaders from the Gusii region at State House, Nairobi, and led by Kisii Governor Simba Arati, who represented the region during discussions with the president. Now, this was the second time that President William Ruto was meeting leaders from the region with a month ahead of his impending tour of Gusii land. Discussions focus on development priorities with Gusii Stadium, Kisii Cancer Center, Suneka Airstrip, and road projects as confirmed by leaders from Gusii. Now, among those present were prominent political figures, including ODM party leader, that is Raila Odinga, and Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba, who joined the gathering to show unity and support for the region's development agenda.
In the Constitution, it requires that the county government will work with the national government. There's no time. As just indicated earlier, my development allocation is only 1.9 billion. The president, courtesy of his office now, is giving us 1.9 billion for only Daraja Mbili, the stadium, the Nyambera market, and the Nyanchwa roads. Forget about the bypass. Alafu uniambie nikae. Unajua Mheshimiwa Rais ile Nyabara alikuwa anasema ukikamua ng'ombe wakati mwingine wezi ichapa.
You cannot keep a country in a permanent state of campaign. There will be no development. Itakana kama uchaguzi imekwisha, watu wanarudi kufanya kazi. Alafu kazi inafanyika kwa muda, alafu baadaye uchaguzi kija tena siasa, watu wanakuja tena wanajitokeza wanafanya campaign. Lakini campaign kutoka year 1 to year 5 hakuna maendeleo yanaweza kufanyika katika taifa.
Nataka nikubaliane na nyinyi ya kwamba leo hatujakuja hapa sana mambo ya siasa. Leo tumekuja hapa mambo ya maendeleo. Tunataka tukubaliane kwa sababu kati ya uchaguzi mmoja na mwingine hapa katikati ya muhimu zaidi ni vile tutabadilisha nchi yetu. Tutafanya nchi yetu iwe bora kuliko vile tumeikuta. Na hiyo kazi ya kufanya nchi yetu bora inafanyika kupitia kwa miradi na mipango ya maendeleo.
Over 30 members of the county assembly boycotted the State House meeting called by President William Ruto, citing lack of commitment in developing the region. The other MCAs, more than 35 of them, attended the meeting accompanied by Governor Simba Arati. The defiant ward reps also hinted at backing one of their own, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, for the presidency come 2027.
As we speak, nothing has been implemented. We are here, more than 30 MCAs who have stood firm and said enough is enough about the lies of His Excellency the President, and for us he is one term.
There is no harm for a community to rally behind one of their own. We are rallying behind Fred Okengo Matiang'i as the president of this country come 2027. Yes. And that is our position as a community. And nobody is going to intimidate us.
We stand here to defend the workers that have worked, and pending bills are still pending. Many people are dying of hunger in this county, yet money is in our CRF account. So we demand that after the governor is done with demanding for additional development, may he come back and pay pending bills. May he come back and attend to the devastating medical situation in our hospitals. May he come back and attend to the local issues.
Kenyan politics is run around communities and regions. And you've seen regions like Siaya, Migori, and other places like coasts. People are benefiting because they're organized as communities. But unfortunately here in Kisii, since the advent of Msenya Chayo as the leader of Aba Gusii, we've not had a leader to unite Kisis. I wanted to say that this time we are very lucky to have a leader in the name of Okengo, Fred Matiang'i, who is ready to unite us as the people.
Right now, former Chief Justice David Maraga has called upon the current administration, led by President William Ruto, to stop abusing the courts and respect the anti-terrorism laws. Maraga, who has also declared interest in running the 2027 presidency, revealed that he was compelled to appear at the Kahawa Law Courts in solidarity with the youth arrested in connection with the anti-government protest. Maraga's remarks on the release of the protesters come at a time when nearly 3/4 of Kenyans do not think that the government is doing enough to investigate and stop extrajudicial killings and abductions, almost 4 times as many as those who view it in doing so, 73% versus 19%.
Radicalizing these young people. In fact, that is already a serious challenge to the country. You don't want to terrorize many young people when they are at the end of the day released. Having gone through all that, you can imagine what will be going on in their minds. We are saying, look, let the state, do its work properly and stop this issue of terrorizing young people who are just asking for their rights.
This is a concern because when we talk about anti-terror, it is funded by the US government. And we're seeing resources being utilized by the state to terrorize young people. Our constitution is very clear. Protesting is within our rights to do that. But when you criminalize democracy, what you have in front of you is people who have refused to let go and continue to defend our constitution.
We all need to hold the government accountable. It's not an issue of just young people. We have some of the people who are in court who are 61 years. They were caught, arrested and charged as maandamano people. We have students who are sitting exams this year. They're refusing to go to school because everyone is calling them a terrorist.
Now, business owners in Nakuru have strongly opposed the 2024 bill seeking to regulate the sale and distribution of alcohol and tobacco products, which is presently before the Senate. Now speaking in Nakuru, yesterday afternoon, the business owners argued that restricting the sale of distribution of these products would open the door for illegal and unregulated goods not certified by KEBS to flood the market. Now they have urged the Senate to ensure public participation before passing the bill.
We find that what Senate is embarking on is over-regulation in this sector. And it is our firm belief this will end up doing 2 things. One, it will hurt our businesses because as more laws and regulation are introduced to the industry, so it will be harder for the industry to provide these products and therefore will end up losing out on sales. 2, the introduction of this law will open a floodgate to illicit and counterfeit products into the market, which are unregulated.
Katika kutekeleza wajibu wake na kuwaongozwa na kauli mbiu ya bunge ambayo ni kwa ustawi wa jamii na serikali ya haki ya watu, maseneta wetu lazima waulize iwapo kwa kupitisha sheria hizi kama zilivyo wanatunza ustawi wa watu au wanatuwekea ugumu sisi wafanyabiashara kujikumu.
Bills ambazo zinazokuja katika Senate, zinapokuja katika National Assembly, zinastahili kuwa bills ambazo zina create employment, si za kukandamiza. That is hiyo ndio apili yangu kwa Catherine Mumo ambaye ni sponsor wa hii bill, na wale senators na mtu yoyote ambao ni wale ambao ni MP, junajua lazima ipitishwe katika MP, wahakikishe kwamba hii bill ambayo inakuja katika meza yao ina open avenues to create employment, not to keep.
Now, Agriculture CS Mutahi Kagwe USAID partnership must strike a deal to boost Kenya's agricultural exports and farmer financing, a move that will open doors for Kenya's financing exports and Scale Investment Partnerships. Now, the CS secured a commitment Kenyan agricultural product to enter more U.S. retail markets, ensuring visibility on store shelves and stronger demand for Kenyan produce. However, Kagwe urged American investors to venture into large-scale farming and agro-processing in Kenya, a move that could shift the country from being a net importer to a key exporter of produce.
At the closest possible space, you know, because the Kenyan farmer for a long time has been having a price problem, and the price problem is because there are too many people between the eventual landing, the last mile and the first mile and the last mile, so to speak. There are too many people.
We refer to that as the daisy chain.
That's the one.
Long daisy chain.
That's the one. That's the one. So for us, there are several ways that we have been discussing and debating how to deal with this challenge. One of them is the online selling platform. All right, where we were supposed to launch it, as a matter of fact, this week here in the US, where we opened the purchase and the selling of coffee online.
Okay.
You know, so that a roaster here in the United States can be able to buy directly, you know, his coffee from the best coffee that he has himself. The second one is our invitation to American companies to come to Kenya to start roasting, packing, and distributing coffee, you know, from within the country.
Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Dr. Musalia Mudavadi, has assured the diplomatic community that Kenya is entering a new phase of economic and foreign policy reforms aimed at restoring fiscal stability, boosting investment, and reinforcing its role as a regional peace anchor. Speaking in Nairobi during a quarterly briefing with ambassadors, high commissioners, and representatives of international organizations, Mudavadi noted that the government is prioritizing a fresh program with the International Monetary Fund. He added that the government was also working closely with global partners to address Kenya's international financial standing.
On the economy, Kenya has and continues to pursue economic cooperation with various countries as part of the government's National Development Agenda under Vision 2030 and the bottom-up Economic Transformative Agenda, BETTER. Economic and commercial diplomacy remains a key priority of Kenya's foreign policy agenda aimed at enhancing economic cooperation, promoting trade and investment. And Kenya remains committed to strengthening regional and global economic cooperation anchored on frameworks and partnerships geared towards achieving sustainable development and inclusive growth. At this juncture, let me point out that the government of Kenya, through the National Treasury, will be engaging with the IMF so that we can work towards a new program. That is usually very critical in giving a very clear signal on the direction that the country intends to take on matters of the economy. Equally, we continue to engage with our development partners and other relevant bodies so that we can eliminate Kenya's sitting on the grey listing of the FATF. So this is something that we are working on.
Now, the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs has condemned the bombing of a building in Qatar by the State of Israel. In a statement on Thursday, the ministry said that the Tuesday bombing was a clear breach of the sovereignty and territorial integrity, posing a serious threat to the regional and international peace and security. The ministry urged all parties to exercise restraint and prioritize dialogue while committing to peaceful coexistence. According to Israeli ambassador to United States, Yeshiel, Israel aims to succeed next time after failing to kill Hamas leaders in an airstrike in Qatar. Now, Israel attempted to kill the political leaders of Hamas with the attack in the Qatari capital, Doha, on Tuesday, escalating the military action in what US described as unilateral attack. that does not advance American and Israeli interests. Now, Winnie Jelagat, a 21-year-old student at the Doret National Polytechnic, has been found dead at her residence in Tel Aviv Estate after an alleged botched self-induced abortion. Reports indicate she suffered severe hemorrhage, losing a significant amount of blood. According to locals, the incident occurred on Thursday morning. Friends who went to check on her were shocked when repeated calls to wake her up were met with silence. They believe she was attempting to seek help but was overwhelmed by pain and blood loss before she could get assistance. Uasin Gishu County Police Commander Benjamin Mwanthi confirmed the incident, urging students in the institution to avoid self-harm and seek professional medical care when in distress.
Tuliitwa tukakuja tukafungua hiyo mlango na caretaker. Style ambayo tulipata, Winnie amelala, alikuwa ameshikilia mkono mmoja kwa mlango na ingine ameweka kwa kitanda. Ni kama alikuwa anajaribu kung'ang'ana kufungua mlango lakini ikamlemea, na mguu mmoja ilikuwa kwa kitanda na mguu mwingine ilikuwa chini. Na hii kichwa yake alikuwa amewekelea kwa kitanda, hata simu alikuwa ameshika kwa mkono hapo. Sasa ni kama alikuwa anajaribu kung'ang'ana kupika simu ama kufungua mlango, lakini ikamzidishia hakufaulu. Wakati tuliingia ndani ilikuwa imeshatoka, mtoto alitoka kwa hali ya damu, haikuwa mtoto kabisa, lakini ni ile damu ilikuwa imeklot. Ni kama hiyo mimba ilikuwa mimba ya sio zaidi ya miezi 3. Kama ilikuwa tu damu imemwakia na ilikuwa imewekwa kwa ndoo.
Na tumeweza kuchukua hiyo mwili na kupeleka mochari. Maybe tu nipeane wazo kwa our students wale wako in the local polytechnics, universities, wakiwa wagonjwa ni mzuri waweze ama wakiwa na issue yoyote ni mzuri waweze approach madaktari na kwenda the hospital way.
Now, the First Lady, Rachel Ruto, has launched the second phase of a program aimed at combating HIV, teenage pregnancy, and sexual and gender-based violence in the country, and threats dubbed as the triple threat, as said to be a rise among young people in different parts of the country. Now, the 4 counties to benefit starting this month include Samburu, West Pokot, Homa Bay, and Uasin Gishu. Key driver of this initiative is the Organization of African First Ladies for Development, an organization she serves as a member of the steering committee.
Has been known for negative socio-economic indicators, but I'm happy that that is changing because of effort of the women in the house. Just want to say that we're hoping that we are going to change the situation in future so that in our lifetime we wouldn't be talking about sexual or gender-based violence or teenage pregnancies, but we'll be talking about infrastructure, not the major issues that especially affect women and girls.
As a country, we still have a big challenge of new HIV infections, and unfortunately, these infections tend to occur in the young people, especially those aged 10 to 24 years, and therefore, working together with you and other partners, and as the clock ticks towards 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda goals, then this is the right thing to be able to do.
Children are really, really suffering. They are being exposed to things that they need not to know. They need to wait until their time. A lot of raping, a lot of sodomizing boys. These are things that we are going through, and therefore I want to thank you for organizing this kind of an event so that we speak as Kenyans, we speak as human beings. Therefore, we are counting on you as the legislators especially and the governors. Help us to reinstate the state of our nation to where it used to be before all these evils came.
Our HIV prevalence is escalating at an alarming rate. Today, over 1.3 million of our fellow Kenyans are living with HIV. That's 3% of our entire population. But what should trigger us into action is this. In 2024 alone, we recorded almost 20,000 new HIV infections, a staggering 19% increase from the previous year. This is a reversible, obvious.
Now, a section of youth from Mombasa County, Changamwe constituency, Chani sub-ward, have been able to access digital training opportunities. The training, organized by Call Africa in conjunction with Siasa Plays, has been able to focus on the appropriate and proper use of the internet, especially in communications, sharing photos and videos, and even ways of making money online. Similarly, leaders have explained more plans that need to be improved so that the internet benefits young people, including making it easier to buy bundles and providing more education for young people so that they can know how to make money online.
Hawajakuja kwa mafunzo kama haya. Tunaweza pia, kuna platforms zao pia wanaweza kuja go through kwa hizo platforms zao learn 1, 2, 3. It's not a must kuje physically, but pia wanaweza soma follow such as Agenda Africa.
Tumefundishwa mengi sana. Mimi kama mtoto wa kike, mfano huwa tunapitia zile, pengine unapost picha mtandaoni alafu unapata watu wanakusexualize, so unapata inatu lower our self esteem, but through the training wametuambia ukipata vitu kama hizo just block them, don't click on the links.
Training kama hii, mimi kama kiongozi wa vijana hapa Chaani, nashukuru sana kwa hawa watu wa Agenda na Siasa Place kuja hapa, na ningehimiza vijana ambao hawakuweza kufika hapa tuweze kuendelea na malumbano katika zile WhatsApp group zetu. Glad leo nimewakilisha vijana wa Migadini Gen Z Development. Hicho kikundi huwa tunajifunza every week, kujifunza various issues.
Sawa. So kuna other digital threats zenye tumezungumzia. Kuna hizi scams zenye zinatokea sana online. Hizi za kutumiwa links ambazo hazijakuwa verified. Mtu anajipata ameclick, either anahakiwa ama anaforwardia watu wengine, pia wote wanapoteza their personal information. Alafu pia kuna hiyo issue nyingine ya cyberbullying yenye watu wanatumia matusi kutukanana kwenye mitandao. So tumezungumza na the youth that we have, wamekubaliana kwamba tutakuwa tunachukua personal responsibility. So mtu akipata hizo messages za matusi, badala ya kuforward una report hizi posts, ndio mtu mwingine asikutane nayo. So inapunguza reach ya hizi messages za chuki.
Now, businessman and politician Bundotich Zedekiah Kiprop alias Buzeki has officially joined the United Democratic Alliance, that is UDA party. Buzeki, who has been a fierce critic of President William Ruto's administration, unsuccessfully ran for Uasin Gishu governorship twice. He was on Thursday received at UDA headquarters, where he lauded President William Ruto's administration as transformative. During the 2022 general elections, Buzeki unsuccessfully vied for the Uasin Gishu gubernatorial race, garnering 127,013 votes against incumbent Jonathan B, who got 214,036 at the time he ran as an independent candidate.
Najua kuna wengine wamekuwa wakinitafuta, wananiambia sasa wewe Buzeki, broad based imekuja. Ananiambia Tinga mwenyewe walikuwa zozana na mzee. Sasa wewe nini unaye zaidi ya Tinga, utaki kuja hapa mahali mzee yuko? Nawaambia tunapanga tunakuja, lakini inakuwa ni ule mwendo wa polepole. Lakini mimi naweza kuja polepole, nikifika ninafika na full power. Inafika na nini? We don't want to be fence sitters.
Tumekuwa na majadiliano hapo chini na tumeamua kwamba yeye atajiandikisha leo akuwe mwanachama wa UDA, na kuanzia hapo sasa ni kulenga mbele kuelekea 2 term na 2 term na 3 term.
All right, it is exactly 31 minutes past the top of the hour. The Rift takes a short breather, but we'll be back in just a bit. Right, it is exactly 36 minutes past the top of the hour. Welcome back. You're watching The Drift. Now let's take a look at what's making headlines on the newspapers today to tell you exactly the dailies are saying as far as the governance of this country is concerned. Now I'm having the Star newspaper, the Standard newspaper, and of course the Daily Nation dated today, the 12th day of September 2025. Now, the Star top story says EACC hits 38 counties in mega tender probe. Of course, there's a story on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. Now, the theft of public resources has intensified in the counties, which with at least 38 devolved units currently on the radar of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, a dossier by the agency shows that completed active on preliminary probes are ongoing in the nearly the counties are over suspected theft of millions of shillings. Now, in some cases, suspects have already been charged in court with various corruption-related offences, while in others, the EACC has sought legal advice from the Attorney General before proceeding. Also, in other counties, investigations are still pending due to a shortage of investigators against the huge backlog of cases. The revelations underscores the scale of graft in devolved units tasked with implementing development projects and delivering essential services to Mwananchi. Now, the EACC has also trained its guns on Nyamira, Busia, Isiolo, Bungoma, Embu, Garissa, Kakamega, Kisumu, Kwale, Laikipia, Lamu, Makueni, Meru, Mombasa, and Nairobi. Others include Nyeri, Kericho, Marsabit, Kiambu, Trans Nzoia, Bomet, Samburu, Tharaka Nithi, Taita Taveta, Uasin Gishu, Vihiga, Kitui, Mandera, Kisii, Kilifi, Tana River, Siaya, and Nandi counties. Of course, you'll remember yesterday that the EACC, slammed the ODPP for derailing justice. That was on yesterday's newspapers. The EACC, speaking during the Senate committee, they accused the ODPP for, lagging and withdrawing cases, which they said is derailing justice. Right? Other stories making headlines on the Star newspaper. Gusii leaders have their day in Senate or the State House, and there is a picture there of President William Ruto, ODM leader Raila Odinga, and Kisii Governor Simba Arati during a meeting with Gusii political leaders at State House, Nairobi. Also, other stories making headlines on the Star newspaper. Lawyer's murder. That is, of course, lawyer Matthew Mbobu. Detectives focus on lunch meeting at Top City Hotel. That's a story on page 2 of the Star newspaper. Also, a college student, 21-year-old, found dead in the house after botched abortion. That's on page 3 of the Star newspaper. Now let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Standard newspaper today. Now, top story on the Standard newspaper says, Tales After Death. Now, by day, Charlo Mbobu cut the figure of a polished lawyer and a devout church elder, a man who quoted scripture and confidently as case law. Now, but beyond the courtroom and the pulpit, he was mired in mounting debts from Shylocks who hounded him for unpaid loans to clients who dragged him to court over millions they claimed he had pocketed. Former colleagues spoke of a once promising advocate increasingly consumed by financial strain. His double life leaving a trail of lawsuits and whispers in legal circles. Of course, let's take a look at that particular story on page 2 of course, and 3 of the Standard newspaper. Now, it is almost 10 years since controversial businessman, that's another story, and persons of interest in the murder of city lawyer Charlo Mbobu have already been identified, with interrogations ongoing in Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen revealed yesterday. Now, the CS, who began his 6-day Jukwaa la Usalama security tour in Nyanza region yesterday, while speaking in Migori County, hinted that detectives were pursuing leads in what he described as a terrible and painful killing. Although the motive behind killing remained unclear, Murkomen assured Kenyans that the investigations are still ongoing and that the DCI are making progress. Now, Murkomen spoke at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, ordered the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, to deliver reports within 7 days on Mbobu's assassination. Now, the lawyer was murdered in drive-by shooting along Magadi Road on Tuesday evening as he drove home in the attack that shook the nation, coming few months after former Kasipul Member of Parliament, that is Nkondo Were, was killed in similar style. Right. Also, security players raise concerns over slow pace of solving murder cases. Now, it is almost 10 years, actually, now since the controversial businessman Jacob Juma was shot dead in cold blood on Ngong Road, Nairobi. Juma, then a fearless government critic, was driving home from a bar of his to his residence in an upmarket estate when unknown gunmen sprayed his car with bullets before fleeing on the motorcycle. Now, the attack happened in an open area under the glare of CCTV cameras and witnesses. Circumstances should have made it easy to trace his last movements and identify the killers. Yet, a decade later, the masterminds remain unknown as the case went cold. A situation security experts say has become normalized in Kenya. Now, typically, killing occurs, authorities pledge with action, but soon the case fades until another murder takes in its place. Now, again in July 2017, IEBC Information Technology Manager, that is Chris Musando, was reported missing. A day later, his body was discovered in Muguga Forest, Kiambu County. Now, the body of Mariano Wairimo Ngobu was also found just meters away. Now, although several suspects were arrested in connection with Musando's murder, the circumstances of the killing remains unclear. Now, the case went cold after 2 suspects were released in 2020 for lack of evidence. Now, like many other murders of Kenyans under mysterious circumstances, the case fell silent despite repeated police promises that no stone would be left unturned. All right. Now, security experts and human rights groups have since accused the police of failing to cooperate and withhold crucial information. This comes in the wake of the killing of prominent lawyer Matthew Chalo Mbobu, whose life was cut short on Tuesday along Magadi Road in Current South. Witnesses said 2 assailants on motorbikes shot Mbobu at around 6 p.m. And of course, as they always say, the security agents, that they're still investigating the matter. And of course, you'll remember that the matter which happened in Kware, bodies were being retrieved from the area Kware, many of the bodies being of those of female. And of course, I'll remember that, or rather you'll remember that there is a suspect who was arrested in connection, with the killing. He was a suspect and was detained at the Ruaraka police station. Now, months later, he was reported missing. Authorities said that he and others escaped, from the police station. And one may wonder how. And from since that day, we haven't heard from the security agencies saying, we are still, intact, with the matter, of course, to bring justice to the bereaved families. And of course, as we always hope that justice one day will come to pass. All right? Let's take a look on other matters making headlines on the Standard newspaper. Now, it's still in relation to the Matthew Chalo Mbobu. Justice Francis Gikonyo says, and I quote, an advocate's lien allows retention of client property only as security for unpaid fees, 97 million Kenyan shillings, as lien for fees far exceeds the disputed amount and violates the principle of proportionality, causing prejudice to the plaintiff. That's the words of 2023 judgment of Justice Francis Gikonyo. And of course, on page 1, 2, still matters Matthew Chalo Mbobu's murder. And page 4, Paradise Scammers, how fake gold fraudsters mint billions from foreigners. Of course, that's a story you can get on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. The groups urge UN, AU, and IGAD to end bloody Sudan conflict. That's a story on page 5 of the Standard newspaper. Now let's take a look at what's making headlines on the Daily Nation newspaper dated today. Now, top story on the Daily Nation says how DCI spies on your phone. That's a story you may want to look at. It's actually in the first page of the Daily Nation, how DCI spies on your phone. Now, a report accusing Kenyan security agents of installing spyware on their phones of two detainees has revived concerns about privacy violations through illegal surveillance targeting government critics. The expose adds to a disturbing trend of police accessing personal data from telcos without court orders. Now, the spyware platform, there is a FlexiSpy, Canada's Citizen Lab, found that the spyware was installed in phones confiscated from Blood Parliament filmmakers in May 2025. All right. Now, Circle's Citizen Lab in 2020 reported that Kenya is among several countries where Circle's infrastructure was detected. And another one, named as Pegasus, a 2018 Citizen Lab report found evidence of Pegasus infrastructure in Kenya, but no proof of it being installed in devices. Now, another one called FinSpy, Freedom House and Citizen Lab found evidence on the spyware's use in Kenya. Right, that's a story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation, just, giving you how DCI spies on your phone. That's a story you may want to look at on page 4 and 5, all right? Now let's take a look at other matters making headlines on the Daily Nation. Matters education. TSC now rules for tutors to oversee exams. Now the regulations targets teachers set to administer national exams for grade 6, grade 9, and 4 candidates next month. And under the new rules, those recruited will not be allowed to serve in schools which they have been affiliated in the past 3 years, among other conditions. Of course, the story on page 10, matters education, matters politics, why Raila postponed crucial ODM meetings. Now the party has deferred its national delegates convention scheduled for next month to avert a fallout that could overshadow its 20th anniversary celebrations. That's a story also on page 7 of the Star, or rather the Daily Nation newspaper. Now, matters lawyer Chalom Bobo is on page 12, and the police pursue 2 motives for murder of city lawyer, and twins separated at birth reunite 4 decades later in Bomet. That's a story on page 3 in the Daily Nation. All right, it is exactly 50 minutes past the top of the hour, and of course 10 minutes to the top of the hour. And of course, we're taking another short breather here on the program. But when we come back, we're going to have a conversation with a gospel artist. We're going to, he's going to, tell us about his musical career. Right? You don't want to miss that particular conversation. That's what's coming up in the top of the hour after the break.